Hi, I'm Gabby Reece, and you're watching The American Athlete. Being raised on an island, you have no choice but to be pretty genuine. My name is Gabrielle Reece, or Gabby Reece. I started my first job really as a professional beach volleyball player, so that was the beginning of my career. I have many other jobs at this point, but I won't bore everyone. Yeah. I grew up, for the most part, in the Virgin Islands, and we had a little bit of organized sports, but not really, and very few of us ever thought like we were even going to go on to college. Then my junior year of high school, I was sort of moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, because there was quite a bit of idle time in the Caribbean, and for a 15-year-old girl, that can spell trouble. And I happen to be 6'3". So they said, you're gonna play volleyball and basketball, and I said, okay. I had dibble-dabbled a little bit in volleyball in the Caribbean. So I chose Florida State, and I played 4 years. I started working in fashion to pay my own bills. And actually, after my second year of competing on a scholarship, I actually gave up my own scholarship, and I paid to play. So after college, I was living between New York City and Tallahassee, and I moved to Miami. And that's actually where I picked up the beach game. I had never played beach volleyball until I was about 21 years old. And after about 6 months, maybe a year of living there and starting to learn the beach game, I had an older partner who had a real job in Miami, and she said, you should move to California and try to play professionally. And I did. And early on, I thrived in that environment and became a professional athlete. Now, if you said to me even a year before, would I expect that I was going to be there? I wouldn't. And I think that's an interesting point to enter into a profession, because I had to learn how to win. And I always say that for me, that took me a long time. And I knew I wanted to win, and I knew I wanted to beat my opponents. I was just always trying to make it feel that I was being authentic.
Holding honest discussions and trying new things has led Gabby to exciting discoveries on how to train.
You hear all the time that, nature and God keep it equal. They don't give you all the right information and the brawn and the energy, when you're super young. They go, okay, you can have all that, intensity and all those great hormones, but we're not going to dole out all the really good information on your training and competing. You're going to have to learn that as you go. And that's what I always loved about sports. It was so very straightforward. I really always appreciated that. It's like, hey, if you work harder, you might get better. If you perform better that day, you might come out the winner. So the same was for my training. And then I got to the pros. My first trainer I ever had was Gold's Venice. It was perfect, right? All these other professional athletes. And we did a lot of right things and a lot of wrong things. Because you don't realize about functional training, you just think, okay, I'm gonna jump higher and I'm gonna bang more iron. But what you don't realize is that in a way, what you're doing is you're compressing your joints, you're doing all these other things. So XPT was something that was born out of basically a sort of a 10-year period of types of training Laird and I and a group of friends were doing. And I would say Laird's sort of the creative motor behind a lot of things, because he'll say, let's try this. And most people you wouldn't follow. You'd be like, okay, no. But because of Laird's natural curiosity and also his confidence to do things that are weird, you kind of go, yeah, okay. And before you know, you sort of arrived at these places that you're like, wow, this is kind of cool. And so for 10 years, we were doing all this breathing and heat and ice and pool. And so XPT was born, and our 3 pillars are breathe, move, and recover. And so it was just sort of taking all these tools and putting it together and saying, hey, okay, you know what? Let's see if we can share this with other people.
XPT is only one of the businesses that Gabby runs, but she also makes sure there's plenty of time for family.
Well, it's so funny. People say, oh, 2 competitive athletes. How about just 2 people cohabitating? Let's talk about a male and a female living under the same roof for almost 24 years. That in itself is like a whole experiment, right? I think what is very helpful for Laird and I, and people don't realize, is we say, like, you leave your sword at the door. So I'm here to make your life better, and it would be really great if you felt the same way. And so I think really what helps Laird and I is we come to it with the same attitude, and also each person is individually pushing themselves. So Laird is a curious person, and he's, interested in new things, and that is really nice to live with. I always say I draft off his energy all the time. Like one time, Laird always talks about getting back on the horse, that if he's ever been hurt or whatever, that he has to go back out and whatever. So long story short, one day he's like, honey, I'm going to be late for lunch. We're going to meet for lunch. And I see him, and he turns and he looks normal, and he turns and he has a huge, his whole face is swollen. His board punctured his cheek. And so he had to go to urgent care. And then I said, well, who helped you come in? It was pretty big too. And he goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, who helped you come in? No, I went out and caught another wave. Like, you have to get back up on the horse. And I was like, so you knew you had a hole in your face and you just had to catch one more? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, that's normal. Yeah, no, listen, it's an intense house. My kids are intense, and we're getting ours back in spades, I can tell you. And that's just how it rolls. And let me tell you, if you want to talk about the real learning, children. The greatest lessons I have learned have been taught to me by my children, because I'm motivated to be better. And they're not going anywhere.
The lessons learned from being a parent are among the many she's willing to share with others who might have the very same questions she did.
As I go through life, I never want to be in the position where it seems like I know anything. But if I'm in a situation where I'm maybe ahead of you on that particular journey, I'll tell you what I know. And maybe because I've had this opportunity to kind of do some things pretty far along and at a pretty high level, I want to have conversations about, how do you have a good relationship? How do you age gracefully? How do you take care of yourself? Oh my God, how do you deal with your kids? How do you deal with finances and all these things? So I think for me, I'm actually interested in having really big conversations around these messy things. Because ultimately it's about connection. If you ask me, is it about helping or coaching? Sure, it's about connecting. And also, if I have something I can give you, I will. And I have people all around me giving me, and it just goes like that.